Hello Rappas, Aaron here, back with another video. Rappa's descending rapidly to your location from above, and she's going to be your new graffiti queen. But how good is she? What do you need to get the most out of her? Where does she work best? Before I answer those questions and more, I just have to say that if you do like my content, why not take a bite out of that Fruity Pebble cookie flavored subscribe button down below. But with that done, let's Shunshin no Jutsu our way right into Rappa's overview. Rappa is an imaginary erudition unit that focuses on dealing large amounts of break damage to multiple enemies. Rappa's basic attack has nothing really of note. It just deals imaginary damage to a single enemy, so it's only worth using if needed. Rappa's skill is what should be chosen over her basic attack, as it deals more damage and to all enemies on the field, while also generating more energy for Rappa. Rappa's ultimate has much more to it than her basic attack and her skill. Rappa's ultimate has her enter the seal form state, which grants her an extra turn. It grants her 3 points of chroma ink, and it increases her weakness break efficiency by 50% and break effect by 30% at talent level 10. While in the seal form state, Rappa's basic attacks are enhanced, and she cannot use her skill or ultimate. When it becomes Rappa's turn, she will be able to use 3 enhanced basic attacks. The first 2 will deal blast damage, while the last will deal AoE damage. These attacks will not grant skill points, and if they hit an enemy without imaginary weakness, they still deal toughness damage based on 50% of the original toughness value. After the 3 basic attacks are used, Rappa's turn will end, and she will lose 1 point of chroma ink. After she loses all points of chroma ink, Rappa exits the seal form state. Rappa's talent grants her 1 charge with a max of 10 charges when an enemy target's weakness is broken. The next time Rappa performs her AoE basic attack in her ultimate, it additionally deals break damage equal to 60% of Rappa's imaginary break damage to all enemies. This damage reduces to toughness regardless of type. This also consumes all charges, with each charge increasing the damage multiplier by 50% and toughness reduction by 1. Additionally, when inflicting weakness break, Rappa will always trigger the imaginary weakness break effect. After using her technique, Rappa enters the graffiti state that lasts for 20 seconds or until Rappa attacks. While in the graffiti state, Rappa sprints rapidly for a set distance where she will attack any enemies she touches, and she will block all incoming enemies. After entering combat by attacking, Rappa deals 30 toughness reduction to each enemy target regardless of weakness type. She deals break damage equal to 200% of her imaginary break damage to targets. She deals break damage equal to 180% of her imaginary break damage to adjacent targets that she hits, and she regenerates 10 energy. Rappa's Ascension 2 Trace grants her 1 charge and 10 energy whenever she breaks the weakness of an enemy that is of the elite status or greater. This will net her slightly more damage overall, and more importantly, more consistent ultimate uptime. Rappa's Ascension 4 Trace converts the toughness reduction from all of Rappa's enhanced basic attacks in her seal form state to 1 instance of 60% super break damage. This increases her damage overall, but also enables her to deal break damage to enemies without a specialized support, even if they are already weakness broken. Rappa's Ascension 6 Trace increases the break damage taken by enemies by 2% for 2 turns when they become weakness broken. If Rappa's current attack is higher than 2400, for every 100 excess attack, this damage taken is increased by 1% up to a max of 8%. This is mainly used by herself, but since it is a vulnerability debuff, it can also be used by the team, leading to a rather large damage increase for other AoE breakers like Ling Sha. Rappa's trace priority is not super important since most of her damage comes from break, which doesn't scale off of trace levels. What should be prioritized first are the traces that do impact her break damage. This would be her talent and her ultimate, with an emphasis on her talent since leveling her ultimate only grants her extra break effect, while her talent increases the scaling of her charge's extra break damage. After that, go for her basic attacks and her skill if you would like to, but all they do is increase her raw damage and not break damage, though they're not as important as the 2 before. Her Ascension traces are much more important, and you should get them all, but in terms of priority, her 4th and 6th are her best. The former enables her to deal super break damage when the enemy has their weakness broken, which allows her to deal damage when she couldn't before. Her Ascension 6 trace is also amazing for the extra 10% vulnerability to break damage for the team. After those 2, get her Ascension 2 trace for the extra bit of consistency, though it isn't super necessary. Since Rappa is primarily a main DPS, her rotations are similar to other main DPS units. You'll usually want to spam her skill whenever it is her turn, but she does not have a heavy reliance on it for damage since most of her potential comes from her enhanced state after she uses her ultimate. When using her ultimate, it depends on what light cone you are using, but you'll usually want to use it right after her turn to get the most most benefit out of any action advance or speed boost from her Lightcones. Now that Rappa's base kit is done with, let's move on to her Eidolons. Rappa's first Eidolon allows all of her damage to ignore 15% of the enemy's defense when she's in her seal form state. Additionally, after her seal form state ends, she regenerates 20 energy. This Eidolon is amazing for guaranteeing more uptime of Rappa's ultimate, since she would normally have to use a skill in between each one. With this Eidolon, there will be many more situations in which she would be able to have 100% uptime of her seal form state. On top of that, all damage she deals in her ultimate now ignores 15% of the enemy's defense, which scales insanely well with the defense ignore from the Iron Cavalry 4-piece set. Rappa's second Eidolon increases the toughness reduction of first 2 hits of her seal form state's enhanced basic attack against one designated enemy by 50%. This nets her a pretty large damage increase in many situations, but especially when against single target content, making her much better in Memory of Chaos. Rappa's third Eidolon increases her skill and talent by 2 each. This leads to an okay damage increase for Rappa, but it's nothing huge, especially since her skill is not a large portion of her damage. Rappa's fourth Eidolon grants her entire team a 12% speed buff when Rappa is in her seal form state. This ends up granting the team maybe 1 extra turn, but considering that Rappa is not guaranteed 100% uptime in every situation, this could grant the entire team potentially no benefit. Rappa's fifth Eidolon increases her ultimate level by 2 and her basic attack level by 1. This increases her break effect and the raw damage her basic attacks do when she's in her ultimate, but again, raw damage is not her priority. The break effect increase, while still beneficial, does not do much for her since it offers such a small amount, making this okay, but not great overall. Rappa's E6, on the other hand, is quite strong. It grants her 5 charges when she enters combat and increases her charge cap by 5. Additionally, every time she uses her final hit in her ultimate's seal form state, she gains 5 charges no matter what. Rappa's charges drastically increase her damage, and guaranteeing she has 5 of them in itself massively boosts her damage. However, now her cap is increased too, which massively boosts her damage ceiling even further. Her damage is so high in this state that she can now be used even against a single target with basically no downside. All around, Rappa's Eidolons are good for a main DPS. The first guarantees her ultimate has 100% uptime while also increasing her damage dramatically. Her second enables her to work better against low amounts of enemies and bosses. Her E4 grants the team an extra turn over a long period of time, and her E6 grants her an insane damage boost. Her weakest parts are her Eidolons that increase her trace levels, since trace levels barely impact her overall damage output. Despite that, I think that Rappa is currently one of the better main DPS units in the game to choose for vertical investment due to her relatively strong and versatile personal upgrades. Now, with vertical investment over with, let's move on to the best way to invest into Rappa at a base level, starting with her relic options. Rappa's best 4-piece relic is the Iron Cavalry set due to the break effect bonus it grants in the 2-piece, plus the large defense ignore in the break damage and even more defense ignore on super break damage in the 4-piece. This set offers Rappa so much damage that it comes out on top as her best overall set, but the Thief of Shooting Meteor can keep up with the Iron Cavalry set pretty well as a substitute because it grants Rappa extra energy while also offering more break effect. The reason it's so good is because Rappa requires her ultimate to deal the most consistent damage, and this guarantees that. However, her energy generation has a limit while her damage does not. So in situations where her energy is already capped out consistently, which is her best situation, this set cannot hold a candle to Iron Cavalry. For 2-piece options, Thalia Kingdom of Banditry is Rappa's overall best relic set due to the consistent and large 36% break effect increase. This is the most consistent increase in break effect she can receive from any relic set, making it her best overall. However, Forge of Calpagni Lantern can offer her 4% more when she strikes an enemy with a fire type weakness. On top of that, this set offers a 6% speed boost unconditionally. This speed boost helps it keep up with Thalia even without the break effect, but with the break effect increase, this becomes her best set. Because Rappa has multiple AoE attacks, it'd be incredibly easy for her to activate the effect of this 2-piece set as long as there is at least one enemy with a fire type weakness, considering it's pretty common to go up against enemies that have both fire and imaginary weaknesses, let alone just one. This passive will usually be active for Rappa in most pure fiction stages. For Rappa's main stats, you're looking to go with attack percent on the body, speed on the boots, attack percent on the orb, and break effect on the rope. You can swap out the attack percent orb for an imaginary damage one, but that's only better than attack percent if you have an absolutely busted build. Otherwise, attack will usually be the way to go. For substats, her most important is speed. Aim for 145 at the bare minimum for the banditry set, but it is better to aim as high as possible. Break Effect is next. This is Rappa's main and basically only damage scaling stat. At the minimum, get this to 130% when out of combat, but just like with speed, aim for higher. Then go for attack until you reach her 2600 threshold. You don't need much else from other stats. With Relics done, let's move on to Rappa's Lightcones, with her best being her signature. Ninjutsu Inscription Dazzling Evil Breaker offers her the largest base attack possible in a light cone. On top of that, it grants a 60% break effect increase in the passive, and it grants 30 energy to the user when they enter combat. Additionally, when the user uses their ultimate, they gain Ration. After the user uses 2 basic attacks while having Ration, the Ration effect will be removed, and the user will have their action advanced by 50%. This light cone offers Rappa literally everything she could ever ask for. Large basic attack for attack percent to matter more, a large break effect stat, energy generation to make her more consistent at the start of combat, and a 50% action advance every time she uses her ultimate. This light cone is so absolutely bloated and offers everything that Rappa could ever want. It's so broken for Rappa that going from E0S0 to E0S1 is her best vertical investment option, just behind upgrading from E5 to E6. This thing is such a monster for her personal damage output and usability that it will be her best in slot light cone by a mile. After the Charmony Fall is Rappa's best in slot 4-star light cone, and is her next best substitute to her signature. This thing offers 56% break effect permanently and a 16% speed boost for 2 turns after she uses her ultimate. This speed boost will only last for the duration of her ultimate, which makes it just a worse version of her signature light cone. Despite that, these 2 stats are her most important, which is why it's her second best light cone available. Eternal Calculus is next, and it is Rappa's best in slot free-to-play light cone. This option offers the user a 12% attack bonus plus an additional 8% for each enemy hit by an attack, up to a maximum of 40%, and this effect lasts until the next attack. If the user hits 3 enemies or more, then the user gains 16% speed or 1 turn. This will be relatively consistent for Rappa in pure fiction, but it will fall off when used outside of that game mode. Despite that, a large attack stat and permanent speed stat enable Rappa to build purely into break effect for damage, while also enabling her to move more than most other light cones. Knight of the Milky Way is up next as a good side grade to Eternal Calculus, as it acts as another pure fiction specific light cone, but with an emphasis on attack. It offers a large base attack on par with her signature, plus 9% more per each enemy on the field, stacking up to 45%. These large attack stats grants this light cone the largest attack available in any Erudition light cone. This allows her to reach her attack cap with ease, which enables her to build only into break effect and speed. On top of that, when an enemy is weakness broken, the user gains 30% damage bonus buff for 1 turn. Considering that Rappa constantly weakness breaks enemies, this buff will always be active. While it doesn't benefit break damage in any way, it is still good at buffing Rappa's raw damage, which is still a factor in her total damage output. This is normally where synergies would take place. However, there are so few break supports in the game, and none of them directly synergize with Rappa other than by buffing her damage, so I will skip to her team segment, which will also be short due to the same issues. Rappa's most obvious composition is the one in which she's used as a main DPS. This comp focuses on drastically raising the damage of Rappa's breaks because of Harmony Trailblazer, while also making her super consistent from Ruan Mei. This will be Rappa's main comp for many players, as anything else is super conditional. One specific super conditional comp to mention is Rappa when used as an extra DPS. This comp is really here to enable Firefly in pure fiction. Firefly can focus mostly on one enemy, while Rappa bursts down the weaker ones. Because Firefly implants fire weakness onto enemies, she will also enable Rappa to use the Forge of Kalpagni Lantern set. This enables her to be a bit faster in more situations, while also dealing slightly more damage. Because it is also pure fiction where the best offense is the best defense, having no healer matters little. Instead, the healer is replaced by Rappa, who would offer the team less buffs, but significantly more damage. But that's all I have to mention about Rappa. Now I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think of Rappa? Do you plan to get her? How do you plan to build her? How far do you plan to vertically invest? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. But with that, I will skedaddle. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Bye bye!